All right. Daphne Christine in the house and looking beautiful.
More importantly, Ollie Bigler and our incredible live studio audience. You guys, listen, with that, my name is Daphne Christine, and I want to welcome you officially to the RainMakers Power Hour with none other than Wendy Butler, Credit Ninja, over there on an airplane, and again, myself. But today we have a very, very special guest, none other than Ollie Bigler, and he's coming to us live from Las Vegas with Credit, and he is with Smarter Aircraft. So with that, I'm going to actually hand it back over to Credit, or Wendy.
Actually, to Wendy. We'll go with me right now. Yes, I just want to do a formal introduction. Thank you, Ollie Bigler, for joining us today. We are very excited to see all these beautiful private jets and hear more about how to make money with these private jets. So basically, your office, Smarter Aircraft, is located in Salt Lake City, and but you work with Cirrus Aviation and with charters and generating revenue through 135 certificates. And I'm going to let you go way more into detail about that. And I do know that you have a background in international trade and finance, have a degree in that actually from Brigham Young University, and actually had a technology company that you recently sold in 2015. With all that background, tell us about yourself, Ollie.
Yes, I was for a long time. I was in technology. I graduated from BYU, did strategy management consulting, then ended up coming back to Utah to start my several tech companies that I worked through, built up, and sold off. And then after that, I was doing consulting. I had met a lot of people that are at the level of being in private aviation as part of that, and had a friend that started a charter company. And I was doing consulting with several companies after my exits, and ended up joining what's called a 135 certificate, a charter company based out of Salt Lake City. And that's how I got into private aviation.
Right. And so today you are going to be not only showing us, obviously, some of the aircrafts that I'm assuming are for sale, but then you're also going to be talking about generating revenue through aircraft and putting them in the charter, I guess, through these 135 certificates in Cirrus Aviation. Is that right?
That's right.
Where do you want to start with that? Do you want to start with your slideshow, or do you want to start with the tours?
Let's start with the tours. I'd like to introduce some of Cirrus Aviation staff, and then get into why we're doing this and what we're about, and then take a tour.
Sounds good. And actually, just for the record, I met Ollie recently at the Jetson Capital event there in Vegas here just maybe just a few weeks ago, huh? And quite an event there. You guys were speaking in front of quite a few high net worth individuals. That's a very amazing event. And these guys were also there that you're about to introduce. So looking forward to seeing these guys again.
Yes, that is great. All right, let's turn this around. And then we can see the group here. All right, this is Greg Woods, founder and CEO of Cirrus Aviation, and Eric, who was in charge of their fractional delivery program, among other things, with Cirrus. And of course, the famous Leanne here, Credit Ninja.
My Simomo Labubu, the first Labubu to be on a private jet. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Credit, only you.
Only one without the boo-boos. Those are very rare, apparently, these days. Very hard to get. Well, good seeing you, Greg and Eric. Nice of you to take the time to join us today.
You want to turn it over and have them introduce himself? Or
Okay, yes. Let's have Greg introduce himself and talk a little bit about Cirrus as well. And before I turn it over to Greg, I'd like to explain to everyone why we're here and why we've invited Greg to be on with us as we're looking at private jets. What I have set out my mission to do is to help people that are trying to get into private aviation, to help them avoid getting taken advantage of and losing millions of dollars. Most of the people listening to this podcast today have an idea that is well established that you have to be so rich that you're okay just losing millions of dollars before you would ever even dream of flying private or buying a private jet, because it is an indulgence. It is something that you do after you're successful, when you just got so much money that you just don't care. And the fact is that the industry has supported that because the industry has been built around people that are bill those people as much as they can to provide them the services where convenience is the name of the game. In the process of joining this charter company, I found out that what some companies can do when they've done it the right way is they can actually look at it from an investment perspective. And I actually got drawn into that because some companies that I was working with did the same thing. They took advantage of the owners. They lost them hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars. And they were friends of mine that I'd had with some of these companies. And so that set me out on the path to find out, is this even possible? In the process, I did due diligence on every single charter company in the country. I started to learn who does what and why. And after all of that due diligence, the blunt truth is that, in my opinion, there are only 2 charter and management companies who actually try to partner on an investment with the owners and try to minimize costs and generate revenue from the aircraft when it's not being flown by the owner. And so that's what we're here. And Cirrus is one of those. This is why we hosted the event that we had a few weeks ago. And it's been hard to find a company like Cirrus in this industry, where they are as determined to run that aircraft as financially efficient as they can to help benefit the owner. So with that, I'd like to introduce now Greg, CEO of Cirrus.
Yay. So glad to have you.
Nice to meet everybody.
Nice to meet you.
I guess background about Cirrus and myself. I don't know if you can hear me. My voice is not strong right now. Fighting a bit of a cold. Our family's been in aviation for a very long time, and we've been running 135s. This particular version of our 135 we've been running since 2009. It's been around for a long time, and I think one of the special things about us is we've never had any capital. We had to do this all on our own. We started from scratch, and we're probably lucky that it was a financial crisis and it was 2009, and we were able to actually buy an airline out of bankruptcy. Otherwise, we would have never been able to start. And because of that, you approach aviation in a different way and with a different care. We try to make sure that we're financially taking care of our owners and get us a long-term partnership. That's actually one of the things that helps make us grow is all of our owners generally will to all of their friends. That's how you snowball.
Okay, I want to interrupt just
Yes.
for a second. Can you have him explain to us that are new to charter aviation terms like 135 certificate and what that exactly means?
Yeah, so that's an FAA regulation. 14 CFR 135 is an on-demand airline. 121 is what you would normally expect for a Southwest or any of the large airline. That's a scheduled airline. And then you'll probably hear Part 91, which is aircraft that are private only. So 135, we are an airline, but we're not expected to publish schedules ahead of time. You can call us up like the carrier.
So 135 is on demand. 121 is like the larger jumbo jets that typically we ride on, and then the one that the privates that don't fly are called, or what was the number for that one?
91.
91, yeah.
91. All right, we're gonna take a test at the end, everybody. So just remember that. Just kidding.
So to make it really simple, the 135 certificate that Cirrus has allows them to make money on your jet. So like an Airbnb, you can buy a jet, and then with the right partner that has high integrity, transparency in their financials, and are really large and well established and have a really strong charter business, then you can partner with a company that has that. And then when you're not using the jet, they will sell charter flights on it and generate revenue on the aircraft, just like an Airbnb.
So I'm curious to know how many jets are you currently managing on that 135 certificate that have the 135 certificates?
We have over 30.
Oh, it's pretty busy.
Yeah,
I have a question. I want to know, who's your ideal client? I know this is a very niche market.
my ideal client as a management client or as a charter client? What kind of client? Management client?
Yeah.
I mean, I like it when people have a good use for private aviation, where the airplane is going to provide them value in their life and in their business. People do like to get into planes every once in a while as truly an investment play, but that's a harder goal to hit. You know, airplanes are time machines. They help you get places and do things so much faster. than you could otherwise do. When you've got a bunch of money, one thing we can't buy more time. That's the only thing we don't have.
So what I hear you saying, this is really good for perhaps executives, entrepreneurs, business owners, investors, and people of those types that travel a lot. Perhaps they don't want to waste time scheduling commercial travel, going in and out of the airports and security. And it just kind of mitigates the cost to that.
Yeah, definitely. One of the things that I do as the broker is I find the charter companies that have passed a full due diligence, the same as if you would look at any other investment. And then we do the same analysis on the aircraft, because not all aircraft are created equal. Some are much more profitable than others. And in fact, that's why we're on this particular aircraft. This is one of the most profitable aircraft per hour flown relative to how much revenue it generates for charter.
And we're going to get a tour of this one today, right?
That's right. That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, so this can be done, but as you've seen, it has to be done very precisely. It has to be the right aircraft. There are only 3 or 4 aircraft really that can hit those top financials. And it has to be the right partner that is dedicated to trying to reduce every cost and at the same time generate as much revenue as they can. Maybe if we do a repeat of this, we could get into the whole analysis of Cirrus, how their operations work so that they can generate more and more charter revenue.
I would love to know that. I do also want to welcome Nelson Apega. That he is the app creator, just came on board, and he's the reason we can cam up and also show a slideshow presentation and talk to people from around the world. So welcome Nelson to the ring.
Pleasure to be here. Pleasure to see you, Ollie, and big fan of planes. Definitely a pleasure. Thank you.
Hey, Ollie, it's Rhett. Thank you for doing this and the information. I'm just curious let's say for the average person in the room, let's say somebody with a net worth of 10 million, does it go like 8 to 12 million? That does it go to 10 to 25 million, then 25 million above? Let's say you're only worth $10 million. You direct people into what's going to work for them where they can break even. Is it like a minimum of $1 million down, let's say, to buy a jet? Then is it 2.5? Is it 10% every percentage of your net worth?
If you were to measure it by net worth, I would say around 10 million at a starting place. But there's the factor of the bonus appreciation that drives a lot of people into charter. There's a special carve out for a tax shelter that is called bonus appreciation acceleration. And for a private jet that is greater than $2 million in monetary value and has at least a range of 1,000 miles, then that aircraft qualifies as a business asset that you can accelerate and write off its full value in the first year. So that's driving people that have had a recent liquidity event and they've looked at other possibilities, but they'd like to shelter that into a private jet. And they also have some interest in having the private jet to help to expand business. That's key. Like Greg mentioned, if they're just buying it for the tax shelter, there's probably other things that they could do if they just want to keep the money safe. But if they want to stretch themselves a little bit, take the tax shift, but then get an asset that can help them to grow their business faster, and they're willing to fly it around 50 hours a year or so, keep it about that level, not go too much beyond that, then they could buy, for example, a Challenger 604 that would probably be between $5 and $6 million purchase price. And it would have, you'd put down 20% as the down payment on that. That's fairly typical. And then a 15-year amortization with a 5-year balloon, that's fairly standard. So you'd put down around $1 million to 1.25 million, but you get the tax write-off immediately for 55%. So about 2.7 million tax write-offs. So you're already coming out ahead there. And then the particular aircraft that we've partnered with and analyzed side by side with Cirrus, then a Challenger 604, and this one that we're on, a Challenger 850, if they're flown around around 500 hours or more a year of charter, barring any surprises, those aircraft can break even. And then if you fly beyond that, then they can generate a profit. And I want to caveat that everything has to work just right. And so inspecting the aircraft, making sure that aircraft is pristine, it's going to fly well, it's going to be reliable, it has a good history, and it's the right model. All of those things go into making sure that you start out on the right foot.
And when you get there, we've got several airplanes where the owners fly for free, so they fly a fair amount. The bank covers itself. You don't have to pay for private flying. That's the holy grail. You get there sometimes, and it's great when you do. I think the biggest thing we like to make sure that people understand that there is some risk with this stuff. Planes are machines, they can break. And when they break, it takes time to fix them, which means you have overhead costs and you have the cost of the fixes. It's important to know what you're getting into. And it's also where like a lot of people start asking about the different programs when they're appropriate for different levels of things. And, that's having an airplane strictly private is most expensive. An airplane that's in charter, let's try to get a little closer, is a place where you offset a lot of your costs. And then if you go into the fractions and stuff like that, that's where you sort of have known worst case scenarios and everything else is covered by the fractional. So it makes it a little bit easier to financially plan what's going to happen.
Which aircraft are the ones that you would say would be the most?
Got to get used to this whole podcast.
That's right. That's right. On it, yeah. It's this is a fun one. Which aircraft would you say are most reliably operationally efficient? Like where you said the owners can fly a fair amount and still break even, fly for free.
Yeah.
What would those be?
I mean, the Challenger line the ASB are our preferred airplanes right now because you can buy them used at less than they would cost new. Yet they're some of the most reliable airplanes. They don't break very often. When they break, not expensive to fix. The 600 series aircraft has been around for a very long time. It's probably got more hours on it than any other private jet. It's got a 99.9% dispatch percentage. So it's excellent. It's much better than most of the other aircraft now.
Yes.
So Ollie, my question was, so let's say you wanted to invest in an aircraft, whatever you would recommend to somebody who flies 40 to 50 hours a year, and you have $1 million to put down. You're going to write off the $2 to $2.5 million off of a $4 or $5 million aircraft. And if you had a sale of a business, it's a great deal. Where does that compare if somebody was just doing the typical $200,000 a year net jets? You get really no credit back on that, and you're not getting any tax benefit, but it's only costing you $200,000 a year. So you're basically flying those 40 hours for about the same cost, but you don't own anything. How do you tell those people this is a better deal? And can they actually make a profit? Or I love the idea of getting the $2.5 million write-off on a $4 million aircraft or $5 million aircraft. And so after 5 years, you have a balloon on that, or do you amortize it over 10, 15 years? What do you recommend?
Boy, that's a great question. And everybody that's flying charter and has a jet card, they ask the same question. At what point should I buy instead of just flying on a jet card? So I will tell you that a general rule of thumb, without generating revenue, without the VRBO part, if you were flying around 100 hours a year, that's about when buying your own aircraft and spending it on operating costs, it would cost you about the same over the course of the year. And that would not factor in the financing cost, by the way. But if you just bought it and then flew it, and then you'd have the asset. So you'd be spending about the same amount of money, but you have the asset now of the aircraft instead of renting the aircraft, right? Buying the real estate.
Tax credit.
Yeah.
As well as the tax credit.
Yeah, you don't get any tax credit for buying a jet card. Yeah, so so that's without any charter. So then you ask yourself, okay, well, when could I enter if I'm going to charter it? And that's where we're saying that equation changes, because these particular aircraft, they'll generate break even to a profit if the owner flies less than 50 hours or less a year. So it's really more of a question of, do they have the capital to buy the initial purchase or qualify for the financing to buy that purchase at around $5 to $6 million. And it's especially ideal if they've got a write-off they need for that amount. Now, if I were to consult with someone who has a small business that's about that level, then I would say you would want to evaluate if you could accelerate your business growth by using the private jet, because that is where things just get so fun. I had a client who had a $10 million liquidity event. He took $7 million of it to take the bonus depreciation on a jet. And then he flew it, and he flew the jet out to pick up one of his investors. And that investor was so impressed that he was at that level that then he signed the contract on the way out. And I believe the investment was about $100 million on a commercial real estate deal. And he called the charter company back after that, and he said, you guys, this jet just paid for itself 10 times over. Thank you. I think I'm just going to fly it now myself and no more charter.
That's a nice bonus. Yeah.
The other piece I was going to mention was we're talking about the difference between charters, jet cards, and owning an aircraft. When you buy an airplane, you buy it for, say, $5 million. That's a plane like a 604, which is a pretty large aircraft. The engines, as long as the engines on that airplane are still on a program, they're worth a couple $1 million. So you've got a resale value there. If you buy a jet card, it's 50. There's no resale value. It's just gone, right? That's one of the significant differences between buying a used airplane and having it yourself, and a fractional. Because the fractional will sell at the end of that term as well, get some amount of money. So that's one of the major differences.
I want to stop you there if I could. And just really quick, I'd like to interject. I don't know that our entire audience is familiar with jet cards. I know Credit here is very familiar. And of course, you guys as well. Tell the rest of the world, what are jet cards for those who don't know, please?
Well, jet card is basically, you'll give a deposit of maybe $100,000, $500,000, depending on how many hours you need. And what the company's doing is they're guaranteeing that they'll fly you for a certain price per hour. And so you're sort of locking in your risk reward that they're going to deliver people. They're just going to go out to the market and fly an aircraft. So most of the big jet card providers in the country charter our aircraft.
Those would be the brands that you've heard of before: NetJets, Wheels Up, FlexJet, Sentient. Yeah, those are all jet card programs. And here's a fun fact. Part of why Cirrus is so successful at what they do is that NetJets will sell somebody a jet card, and then they'll call up and say, okay, I want to fly on this date. And they don't have any planes that are close enough to that person. And it would just cost them an exorbitant amount to get the jet to them. So they will take that to their number one preferred supplemental lift partner, Cirrus here. And Cirrus will actually fly that flight for NetJets. So when you partner with the right company, you're actually tapping into the entire national charter market and all those marquee brands. And also because they have to represent NetJet's brand, Wheels Up, FlexJet, that's also part of why they are so pristine and careful in everything that they do. Everything from the appearance, the passenger's experience, and then their financials, their audits, all of those things that go into providing that for the stakes are high, right, with those brands.
Yeah, figures a long time to get there.
That's right. How about we take a tour of this thing while I'm talking about why these particular models do so well. And I could talk through the things that we look at when we're looking at a chartering aircraft.
I'm excited.
Yes, excellent. We can't wait.
Okay, very good.
Yep, there you go.
Okay, going to turn it around.
Push that down.
Oh, right there.
Yeah, there you go.
Nice. Okay. All right. Now, I think I'll start in the very back here. This is a Challenger. This is a Challenger 850. And this is a little secret weapon that Cirrus actually introduced me to. There were only 90 Challenger 850s made, which is very few. And so you'll notice here, all right, there's some standard areas on an aircraft. There's the lavatory, right? All aircraft have a lavatory, and you can see it here. Not the most interesting part of the aircraft, but people care a lot about what the lavatory looks like. And this particular Challenger 850 is so large that it is like a Gulfstream, like a G4, or bigger than a G4. Oh, yeah. 15 to 18 seats on these all private. And what you're seeing here is that this is actually 2 rooms. You have to have a really large jet to have 2 separate rooms on your jet. And I will tell you that the name of the game in charter is the more seats, the more money. Seats sell, and the more seats a particular jet has, the more revenue it's going to generate. So the larger aircraft generate a higher dollar amount relative to operating costs than the smaller jets.
All these seats turn into beds.
Yes. All these seats turn into beds. These fold down. This is a divan. Those armrests come out, and then it folds down into a 2-person bed. And this would be a single next to it. And then this is what they call the conference configuration. This is a conference table or dining for the people that are traveling. And then it also folds down. The table goes down. And then this is another 2-person, or poker table. That's right. We're in Vegas. Okay. And of course, when Cirrus is going to fly a customer, they handle, I think this is something important for people to know. I get asked this a lot. It's like, well, how do I learn how to manage all this stuff on the aircraft? The whole point is that when you partner with your charter and management company, they handle everything for you. You just get reports back They sell the flights, they fulfill the flights, they white glove service the clients, they bring the catering on, they handle all of it. And then in Cirrus's case, they do full reporting. So you can just see how roomy this is, right? It's just so luxurious.
We can talk about the wind if you want.
Wind. Okay. Yeah. Let's.
The wind.
Oh, the wind.
So this aircraft, you know, if we were in, I'd say, that spell should be 550s. Well, I would be able to reach and I could grab the other seat in my hand without leaning. This cabin is 8 inches wider, so that not only are the seats bigger, but it just makes the cabin feel more spacious, almost like it's your living room. It's more calming being it's bigger. You don't even feel like you're in an airplane.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it definitely looks like a living room. It looks like 2 living rooms. It's amazing.
Hey, Ollie.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I'm on the website looking at the fleets. Which model is this that you're on?
This is the Challenger 850.
Okay, I'm gonna do I see y'all have the 3D tour, so I'm gonna be showing the 3D tour at the top while you're giving the tours.
All right.
This is 100 VE if you're looking at the tail.
Yeah, the tail number 100 VE, Victor Edward, or Echo. Echo. You got to have the right plane lingo around here.
Gorgeous aircraft that is. Listen, I have another question. Folks want to know about the staff. What about the pilot? What about a staff on flight if someone needs concierge service?
Yeah, that's a great question. That is something that the charter and management company does. It's a part of how you evaluate your charter and management partner, because there's pilot scarcity. And imagine trying to figure out which pilot to hire and how to do that. So that is a key part of what the charter management companies do is they have, the larger they are and the more well-known they are too, the easier it is for them to hire. But they, just like you would hire for any company, they do their very best to create quality of life for those pilots so that they want to stay and fly for this company, because it is so expensive to try to hire a new one. And you as the owner would end up paying for that in terms of turnover, just the same as you would in your own business. So minimizing turnover with pilots is important financial benefit.
And I mean, when you're looking at charter companies, like one of the things that we do is we bring things from scheduled airlines into 135 on-demand airline, which smaller companies can't really afford to do. We vet all of our pilots very carefully. Then we never release it. They have to fly with our check captains for about 6 months before they become a captain at flight. It's just like anything else. You could have a doctor or a mechanic or whatever. They may look good on paper, but they may not well.
Yeah.
Especially thing with airplanes. We have a whole bunch of different things that we do there. And these big airplanes are also nice compared to smaller airplanes because Ollie's up by the galley right now. There's a full galley, you get a full service. And so you can keep food up and you've got wine freezers and everything. And we always have a cabin attendant on these airplanes, which allows you to provide high-end service on the airplane and also make sure when you have charter clients on the plane, nothing gets broken.
So you can see that here we're walking to what's called the galley. The galley is where they have all of the food, snacks, ice, ovens for cooking. They have these special meals that are for these types of ovens that create delicious hot meals for the passengers. And then this one's equipped with a flight attendant seat. And I think on this aircraft, almost every flight, if not every flight, will have a flight attendant as a part of it. Here's something fun I wanted to show you. Where Greg is sitting, this is called the owner's seat. On all of these large aircraft, the seat that is facing the pilots, but the front-facing seat is the one where the owner always sits. So the owner, when he's on a flight, and then the owner has special controls at the arm of that seat to control cabin lights, temperature, movies, sound, music, and things like that. And then these aircraft will typically have something like a visualization of the flight. So you know where you're at on the flight, similar to when you fly commercial and you can go and watch the flight's progress. That's something that people appreciate. This one has the 2 screens front and back for that. This is a part of what you learn about in the aircraft is what kind of entertainment systems it has. And that's relative to its size, typically, because size is also the length of time you're going to be flying on the aircraft. And then, of course, you have in the front here, you've got the cockpit. And one thing that we look at with aircraft, the strategy on buying a chartering aircraft is that you buy old. You try not to go past 20 years old, but you definitely don't try to buy any newer than 10 years old, because then you are limiting the depreciation rate of the aircraft. Just like a car, if you buy it new right off the lot, it's going to depreciate really fast. But when you're getting into the 15-year range, 20-year range, then the depreciation slows very much relative to the amount of of hours that are on the aircraft. And then we also try to buy an aircraft that has lower hours than the hours of the fleet, so that as it's flying charter, it can be below the normal hours, and then it doesn't lose any market value. As it flies more and more, then it won't lose market value. And then you can think about if you want to pay it off and just keep flying it as cash generating, or if you want to sell when it hits at about fleet average on hours, and then you don't lose for depreciation in that way. That's a little trick of the financials as well.
Depreciation. This aircraft originates from the Challenger, the RJ200, which is a commercial aircraft. It's meant to have over 100,000 hours on it. So these particular airplanes in private market, we can't put enough hours on them. We'll never get anywhere close to that.
Yeah, that's another great thing about the Challenger 604 and the 850 is they are built to fly 30,000 hours.
So when do they retire? When do you don't know? Is there a number? No.
What is airframe? They have to stop making the parts for it. So we'll have to have the plane will be fine.
So when you book the staff and so forth, do you cover for their board and in between flights? That's all included, right? Because there's always sometimes a day or two that they have to stick around to do the return flight with the next flight. Is that all included in the quote?
When you're partner,
Yeah.
yes, yeah, that will all be included. So
Yeah.
you get a single price, and then that means the owner. So but
Okay, great. Yeah, this is all tax write-off, guys.
That's right.
You do it right.
If you do everything right,
Yeah.
tax write-off pays for itself, pays for your flights, and then you just close deals faster and faster by flying your business partners on. Win, 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 win. And that's what I'm about. And that's the message that I've really gotten into is this idea that you're going to just lose a ton of money. It's not because that's the truth. It's because so many people have gotten taken advantage of, and then they share a story with somebody else about just losing a ton of money. And what they don't know is that didn't need to happen. It was the operator that didn't do it right. So one thing I teach my clients is how to evaluate operators, how to ask what questions to ask and the right questions so that you know how they're operating, how they're billing. And it's things that you would expect, but you don't think about it with aircraft. Like they need to have transparent billing. They need to not do markup on cost. They need to be financially aligned with you, meaning that they primarily make money from the charter revenue and not from other things like marking up fuel, marking up maintenance, marking up even hiring of personnel. I've seen crazy markups. And part of the reason is because some companies aren't trying to generate income for the owners. They're trying to fly minimums of hours, and they actually charge a premium for that. So they'll mark up everything and all of that. Yeah. Go ahead.
And then you also have to make sure that the charter company shares all of the revenue with you, because there's different ways this happens, but a lot of companies, when they double sell something, so say we're going to fly from Vegas to Salt Lake City, and Ollie flies on, maybe on the way back from Salt Lake City to Vegas or to LA or something, we sell a flight, and they may not report that back to the owner of the airplane because the plane was going to move anyways, and so that revenue can kind of disappear. And those are the companies that aren't looking at long-term partnership. They're just looking to get as much money as they.
Now, are you talking about empty legs? Can you tell them a little bit about empty legs and how that factored in?
This is a really fun part of the revenue model that Cirrus is really good at, which is quite often when you're going to book a charter flight, the company you're booking with needs to move that aircraft to you from another city that's close by. So they will charge you a relocation fee, but that plane is going to fly empty to go pick you up. But the next charter customer will have paid for it. Well, then what Cirrus will do is they have a big charter sales team, and they have financial incentives they give to that team to participate in the revenue to get bonuses and things for selling high profit flights. So they will just hustle hard to sell that empty leg that's already been paid for, to sell it again and promote it and say, here's an empty leg, who wants to get on it? And then they'll cut the rate down and they'll do other things like that. And in fact, this is another way that Cirrus will save money too, is that they will do whatever it takes to not fly it empty ever, because that costs the owner whenever it flies empty. So they'll start out at a normal rate and then they'll whittle it down. And finally, they'll just sell it at cost if they have to, so that at least the costs are being covered when it relocates. And as you can hear, this takes hustle. This is why I like Cirrus so much, because after looking at 150 charter companies in the US, there are very few that just hustle like serious. Right, Greg?
Yeah, no, we try really hard, and it keeps us really aligned with the owners. We make on an empty bike, we make $5,000. That's $5,000 net profit, and it goes straight to the owner.
Yeah.
To us, that's really, really important. You're trying to cover the cost of one of these airplanes.
Yeah. Something I really like about that is that when we show the financials and the projected financials to the buyer, the person looking to buy, they always go low on them to set a moderate expectation. And then they work their asses off to over deliver on that. And that's a lot of fun to watch.
Ollie, what is the time frame on a jet for maintenance issues, for refurbishing? Is it 5 years, 10 years? I heard there's some amount. Is it hours? Is it miles? Is it years? What is it on these jets that cost so much to go back? And I heard about, the potential part changes and things like that. We looked at a jet about 14 years ago. We ended up not buying one because it was going through some cost. I think it was $1 million on like a $3 million jet. What is the time frame on these jets that cost so much for updated maintenance?
Here's the general financials on how you evaluate why this works with some jets and some not. Almost every jet costs about the same, what are called your fixed costs. Pilot salaries, hangar, insurance, subscriptions for the aircraft, all those normal things. And we go through this in detail when we do the pro forma analysis. I educate the owners on what are all the costs that go into these various things. It's about the same for all the jets. The smaller the jet is, a little bit lower are the fixed costs, but in general, it's going to range from $1 million a year on the smaller ones, like a light jet, up to $1.5 to maybe $2 million on the largest jets themselves. Where there's a huge difference is in what are called the direct operating costs, or for those business finance majors, the variable costs. So what is your cost to provide the flight? You could also look at that as cost of goods sold, which is one of the ways that I measured my companies was how much does it cost me to provide this and what do I got to price it at? And we'll look at this again when we circle back after we go and look at the outside. I'll show you a table of the variable costs on the aircraft. And I'll give you an example. A Challenger 604 costs $2,900 an hour to fly for a $7,000 or $8,000 charter price. So pretty large margin, at a 66% margin. Whereas a G4SP has an almost $6,000 an hour operating cost relative to a slightly higher charter revenue of $9,000 an hour on average. So that's pretty obvious. Once you know those numbers, which one is going to generate you more cash flow? Well, the one that generates more profit for every hour flown. So that's how we evaluate that. We'd like to go outside and walk around this aircraft. It's going to get a little noisy. Is that all right?
Yes, of course. We want to see it. Ollie, what is
Okay.
the price tag on the jet that you're currently on? What would we expect to pay for that jet?
Oh, that's a good question. The Challenger 850s, everything's relative to, how much Bitcoin?
Yeah.
Everything's relative to the age and the hours of the aircraft. The Challenger 850s range from about 7 million on the low end, 7.5 to 12 to 13 million on the high end. But there can be a lot of variation there. And I'm realizing that I veered a little bit away from Rhett's question. So when you're looking at an aircraft, the things that you look at in terms of the interior and how well it looks is preferably you have the seller pay for all the expensive stuff, which is not the cosmetics. It's all the stuff you don't see. The underneath, the bones, the avionics, the hardware, the Wi-Fi, and all of those things. And you can get a lower price when it doesn't look great, but it's got these expensive upgrades done on it. Like a Challenger 604 needs an avionics upgrade called Fusion that costs $1.1 million. Whereas to do an interior that looks like this on a Challenger 604, you're probably looking at about $250,000 for sockets, maybe a little veneer. And these are all things that go into pricing out. How much will this cost you at the end of the transaction? Because you want to know, you want to add all those things up, not only to buy it, but also to get it ready to fly charter so that it looks good and it has the upgrade needs. That's your actual total ticket price. And we analyze that on every aircraft and what upcoming major maintenance is happening. That's another thing that happens with aircraft is they'll have time-based maintenance events required by the FAA, and then they'll get more and more expensive as that time goes on. And then some of them are over $1 million for the cost on those. And of course, some of the owners are going to try and sell those before that $1 million required inspection comes up. And you got to make sure when those are coming, so you don't get bamboozled or lost, or you just make a hasty decision. All this stuff has to be analyzed very deeply. Okay, let's run out. All right, let's go out and take a look outside here.
That we cannot hear Ollie if he's talking. I'm not sure what happened.
I think we actually lost Ollie for just a second. Credit, do you want to pick up there where we left off? She probably can't hear. They said it was
You might need to text her so she can see it on her phone.
You know what? I think she might just be giving us a nice visual there.
Yeah, she's.
Is the name of that jet RainMakers PowerHour? I can't.
You know it, baby.
That's a great name. Yes. Yeah, throw some names in the chat while we're waiting here, guys. What are we going to name our jets? What are you going to name your next jet?
What are you going to name your next jet? I like that, Wendy. That's
We're going to.
nice.
Well, I'm trying to get credit. I'm trying to let her know we can't hear.
And while we do that,
Nigel said he'll take two. Danielle Pesci, she says the amplifier. I love it. What a great name.
Oh, that's a great name.
Daphne, would you like to give a special shout out to our amazing sponsors?
William and Harry on,
Yeah.
your side. That'll be me. Shout out to, and I'm trying to text her to let her know.
I'll give a quick shout out. I'm not sure what's going on. I dropped the ball there, but for
Okay.
sure. Shout out to William and Harry, a luxury golf brand. My favorite. I always mention it because I'm telling you, mind blowing. Not only do they have these amazing luxury items, but they have fuchsia. I don't want to call it hot pink. They have these amazing fuchsia alligator luxury golf shoes. And I'm telling you guys, if you haven't seen it, if you want to be sharp on that golf course, you got to kiss yourself to William and Harry. And thank you so much for sponsoring us here at the RainMakers Power Hour. So with that, Wendy, back over to you, my love.
Thank you. I was sending her that text. I couldn't say, but yes, the new pink python, man, we need a picture of those, are pretty incredible, and they would look great on that jet. Just thinking ahead, I hate that we have lost them. I'm trying to at least let them know that, wow, look at that. That's a black. Is that the one we were just in?
Honey, that looks like your jet.
Yeah, that's I want a pink stripe, of course, but
Yeah, right. Put that on the Christmas list, sir.
I'm going to just call her, see if I can.
And to think all I wanted was a pink Bentley.
You would look cute in a pink Bentley. Come on.
And come on.
I try to get her to
Well,
answer.
you know what I was doing is I was looking on the Cirrus, and you guys, if you want to look it up, if you're hearing the sound of our voice somewhere else,
Hey, we cannot hear either one of you.
Cirrus, can you hear me? Oh, Cirrus is Cirrus. If you guys are looking this up at home again, Cirrus is Cirrus aviation, just like the cloud. And there we have Ollie back.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
You can. Okay. I walk back in. Okay. Yeah. Where did you lose me?
Right before the start line. Start again.
We pretty much didn't hear anything. But listen, I do want to tell you, Ollie, would you prefer to show us the exterior, or would you like to show us your slideshow? Because we're running short on time here, and I want to make sure you get in what's most important.
Okay. Yes, I agree. And
We can be back, of course.
yeah, we could do this another time on the outside when it's not turned on. But hey, at least you know it's not a set.
It's the real deal. We can thank Nelson Apega for that. Nelson's in the room, as we have talked about before, the creator of the app. I'm going to take the opportunity to thank him for all of the features that he has given us so that we can have a successful show. I mean, look at this. We're in Vegas with Credit and Ollie, and just being able to cam up, talk about different features of this jet and show them that. I mean, it's just great app. Thank you, Nelson. Okay, let's get to our slideshow presentation. Nigel, you're up.
Let's do it. So it's just this one slide, correct?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
All right, it's up.
Now, this is what I was referring to when I mentioned that the variable costs or the direct operating costs. One of the things that we do in this exercise is we inspect these aircraft and analyze them the way you would analyze any business. But most people don't think you can do that because they're told how complicated it is and how hard it is. But that's because the brokers they just want to sell to the rich guy and move on, right? And they don't want to set up an ongoing business. Me, having come from a business background and having built my own businesses, I know how hard it is to do that, and how hard fought the money is that now you're going to invest in a second thing to help your business grow. There just can't be room for error. So we treat these with financial precision and then vet the operators to find the ones who have the same behavior, financial precision. So Cirrus has done all this evaluation on the cost of these aircraft, and the other operators that look at it this way, they have. So that slide, if you could show that, this will show you the difference. And of course, we can go into more detail on another podcast or on a consultation call with someone, go into every line item as much as the person would like to know. But this is a way to just look at it at a simple level. All right. Now, is that up on the screen?
I had just came right back in. Where do you want to go, Ollie?
Okay. Yeah, if you wouldn't mind showing that slide for a minute, and then we'll just discuss that.
The expense per hour flown?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Can you not see it? I have it up. Can y'all see it?
Okay. I do see it there.
You see it? Okay.
Right,
So
yeah.
how-
So given that most aircraft cost about the same to just own and operate and hire your pilots and hangar it and all those things that are standard called fixed costs, these are the things that go into the variable cost of the aircraft. And I would say as a general rule, the way that you can know if an aircraft is going to cost less to maintain and operate or cost more to maintain and operate comes down to two primary things. One, the fuel burn. Fuel is the largest operating cost. And so it's fuel burn per hour, gallons per hour measured there. And then secondly is how much does it cost to maintain, fix it? And a way that you can just do a rule of thumb to evaluate if an aircraft is going to be easier to maintain or more difficult to maintain is, are they still making that model today? Now, when I say model, it's going to be like the Ford Bronco. There's ones you can buy that are from 1969, and you can buy a brand new one today. With aircraft, it's the same function because they have to get that all approved by the FAA. So the bones of it and all the parts, the nuts and bolts and wires and screws, all of those are standardized across every single aircraft that has it, whether it's 30 years old or whether it's brand new out of the factory. And then the things that change are the latest technology, avionics, which eventually you want to upgrade. So if you want to know, like if something goes out that's going to keep it from flying, how fast can you get that part? That's really the name of the game. So if they're making that airframe today and you're buying an older one and there's still new ones coming off of the factory floor, you can know that it's going to be pretty easy to find parts for that. And the name of the game in this, with charter especially, is time. How fast can you get the part there and how fast can you get it fixed and up and flying again? And this is actually represented on this chart with the maintenance line. That's an estimate of the cost per hour flown to maintain that aircraft, broken down to the annual cost and a certain number of hours to be flown per year. And that's where the wild card of unpredictability is too. And I included the G4 in here so that you could see the large difference between the Challenger 604 on the left and the G4 on the right, which is significantly higher per hour maintenance cost and the fuel burn, which is much higher as well. Another thing that all aircraft have, and if they don't, then we would want to add it because you definitely need to have this on charter, is called the engine program. That's an insurance and savings plan for your engines. As Greg mentioned, those are the most expensive, most valuable thing on the aircraft. And the FAA mandates that you have to replace them and overhaul them after a certain number of hours flown, 5,000 to 8,000 hours, depending on the aircraft and the motor type. So you have a savings and insurance program on there where you're paying per hour, building up to what it will eventually cost to replace that engine and overhaul that engine. And then that's value that goes with the aircraft because typically the original owner isn't going to be the one that actually pays for that engine overhaul when it comes due. The average ownership life for a jet is around 5 years. So that's value that goes with it. And then it also has insurance on top of that. If something happens while it's in the air, it's covered and paid for if you've been paying your hourly program fees. And you'll notice here that there's a huge difference between the engine program for the Challenger 604 and really any of the others. G4, you'll see it $360. And that's another example of there being a lot of them. The engines that are on a Challenger 604 and a Challenger 850, same engines, they are everywhere. They're on a lot of different aircraft types. They're very popular. They're low cost to maintain because parts and service people, maintenance staff are everywhere. All right. And then you'll notice here that we have a line item for refurbishment. Like Rhett was saying, for charter, those aircraft got to look nice. You got to plan on that, making it look nice when you buy it, if it doesn't. And then every 7 years or so, roughly, you're going to want to update it. made look fresh, clean, and pristine.
Oh, I'm fascinated by all of this and just the terminology. We are fortunate to be able to fly on jets, fairly, I wouldn't say often, but we do get to, as I tell everyone, Rhett is the king of OPJs, riding on other people's jets. We get invited frequently on other people's jets, which is super fun. And so it brings the question up, Ollie. Now, I heard you talking about the empty legs and how you'll try to fill it and whatever for less cost. Are you typically on, like, am I going to be on your list for those? Because I would love to be on a list like that. Hey, I'll take off and go, whatever. Is there such a thing as being on an empty leg? Is there a spot where you find that?
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm gonna be the plug. I got you.
And it's going to be the
For everyone.
This might be the biggest nugget of all.
Yes, the Boo Boo and I are gonna be the plug. Ray's gonna hook us up. We're gonna talk about all that. Stay tuned. Follow the Rainmakers Power Hour, and you get all the plugs on them.
Put up the website wherever I need to go to get on that list. I'm excited about that.
Yeah. One thing that I wanted to mention before we wrap is one of the things that I feel can be the most valuable in terms of just how do you grow your business? How do you be successful with this thing that seems really expensive? And my mission and partners like Cirrus, the mission is to provide that at a much lower net worth at the point where the business needs it to grow. And it's not going to cost them $5 million. If they're not going to blow through millions of dollars because they got lied to, then they have a good shot at using that to impress clients and partners or to get places quickly. We've got a lot of stories of deals where it was time sensitive and they were trying to get there on commercial flights, and it's in some small town where it's going to take them 24 hours of flying to get there, and they will lose the deal if they don't get there. There are quite a few strong financial justifications for a growing business to invest in private aviation in a way that is safe like this. Of course, this is the only way to do it because no one at that level is prepared to just lose $1 million a year. It's just not going to happen, right? Because of that.
How about if you wanted to, just for pure pleasures, what would you recommend somebody, they only want to put $1 million out on a plane? What would you say? Look, I'm flying 50 hours a year. They're mostly local. What would you recommend to somebody like that where they could break even just putting $1 million down? What plane would you recommend?
Are you referring to $1 million down payment with financing?
Yes.
Okay. So at 20%, that would give you a $5 million purchase price. For $5 million right now, the best financially sound aircraft, again, with the right partner, are the Challenger 604 and the Citation XLS.
Well, how about partnering up with some friends?
Yeah.
Like you get together. Like Brent has a whole bunch of poker friends, a lot of business friends, just say three of them come together, and can you put an agreement together to get a bigger jet? I mean, size matters, right?
Yes. In fact, that is the last thing we wanted to touch on before we wrap today is fractional and joint ownership. So I'd like to turn the time to Greg here to talk about, and again, the encouragement here is that if maybe a fractional share of a jet is the stretch that you can do, I think it's worth it for almost every business. There might be a few that it might not, but let's have Greg talk about what that can look like.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say three things quickly. One, a lot of the stuff we've been talking about sounds pretty complicated. Now, having the right partners, having someone like Ollie helping you find an airplane, having somebody like us operating the airplane, it's key because we know the answers to the questions. There's things we don't know about private jets, but we know how to research and ask the right questions and figure it out. Whereas a lot of people coming in don't know. So partner with the right people, and then I highly encourage people, I highly encourage people to be in joint ownership. We have singular ownership makes sense. We have a lot of airplanes. We have multiple people who own the planes together, and we have ways of making sure that there's problems with scheduling and we use other airplanes to fill in. And it works out great, and it allows you to get into one of the planes that pencil versus buying something cheap that's initially cheap, but in the long run, it's not cheap. That's a trap. A lot of people get caught into, like, oh, I've only got $3 million, so I'm going to buy this thing. Well, if you partnered with someone else with $3 million and you bought this other airplane, 5 years from now, you be way happier. That's where we want to keep everybody. If you're not in a place where that makes sense, sometimes a fractional makes a lot of sense because it is a known cost and it gets you around and lets you bring other people on your airplanes, and it's at a lower cost of purchasing, buying it by yourself. So we're going to be launching a fractional program there shortly, and it's going to be special to the market. It's going to be a good thing. Can't quite talk about it yet, but there is a place for that in the ownership transition planning.
Yeah.
With the fractional cost, does it matter if the people are in all different locations of the country, or is it better if they're all located in the same area?
Typically, when you're buying into a fractional program, that aircraft is going to be based at a certain airport. And then it's going to be people that can just drive right to that airport that would split up that fractional.
Especially if you're talking about like joint ownership. Joint ownership, you want to be close.
Yeah.
You don't have to be in maybe the same city, but maybe Las Vegas and Salt Lake, or Las Vegas and LA, or something like that.
Around this area.
Within an hour or so.
Cirrus already has joint ownership structure set up. You have to do a little bit of complex entity structure to house it, and then how that entity relates to the businesses that it'll be flying for. And so we also recommend and have referral partners for a really good aviation tax attorney and aviation CPA. So you can track all of that correctly. And then the legal structure to house it, where the management company will allow two different people to be covering the expenses on it through that structure as well. And something else I'll mention about fractional is a lot more expensive than if you just the aircraft yourself, but you're able to buy into at a much smaller rate because you're going to do a fraction at between 1/12 to 1/16, depending on the company. And they're very happy about it because they're making money off of the shared management fees, which everybody pays a little bit more, but that generates revenue for the management company beyond the actual expenses for the aircraft. So that aircraft can be dedicated through that method of flying for the owners, for the different fractional owners, and not have to rely so much on the charter revenue. So it's a give and take, and it can let you get in there are some fractional programs where you can buy in for less than $1 million per share on a fairly new aircraft. Typically, you're going to want to have pretty new aircraft that they do those fractionals on as well.
Is Sirius your company? Are they located in Naples as well, or is it mostly West Coast?
Naples, Florida.
They're based out of Las Vegas. Now, here's something that we hadn't mentioned. A part of what separates out charter companies that can do this from those that can't is something called a floating fleet model. There's enough demand for charter across the country and few enough providers that for a dedicated charter aircraft, which these would all be because the owners would be flying less than 50 hours, they are constantly flying all around the country, flying charter. The sales team's job is to make that financially efficient by doing what's called daisy chains. They get a charter customer to fly from city A to city B to city C, and so forth. And then when the owner gives enough advance notice, they'll just weave the owner in just like any customer, but they'll get a charter customer to pay to get it to him and then to pick it up right when he lands and keep going. They can be really financially efficient that way. So the base in this model, the base of where the company is doesn't matter nearly as much because it's really only going to stop when it needs its maintenance event, and it's going to go park in the maintenance shop's hangar for free while it's getting fixed. But if you were to want to do joint ownership, then what Cirrus would do, we've actually talked about this, they would start with it based where that person is and then look for and do marketing to find the 2 or 3 additional owners that they would want to do, depending on what the primary would be interested in.
Now, this is kind of a personal question. So let's say somebody spends $100,000 a year on air travel like we do, and it's a lot of times it's difficult from the places we want to go. What would you recommend? Would you recommend a $3 to $5 million jet, or would you recommend a more expensive jet based off of breaking even or making money if you're only flying literally 50 hours a year? I mean, I know that's an off the base question, and we've been looking at this because it's the convenience factor. It has nothing to do with business. It's all about convenience.
Right. Okay. So let me ask you a few more questions. 50 hours a year, where would the aircraft be? Where would the owner live?
Mostly in Naples, Florida, or in Alabama, Fairhope, Alabama, close.
Okay. And then what would be the typical flight from where and to where typically?
Well, it's either to the Bahamas, to Alabama, to Florida, or to DC are the typical flights.
Okay. So fairly average distance US, but then some overseas flights like Bahamas.
The Bahamas is close. It's an hour and 30-minute flight.
Pretty close, yeah. And nothing further than that. It's not going like overseas, Europe, UK.
Nah, we would fly commercial for that.
It's for rent. It's
Yeah.
for rent.
Yeah.
It's a loaded
And then-
question.
Yeah. Well, this is the interview we go with every customer because there's good aircraft at each owner need. So last question, do you have any preference or demand for a certain level of comfort when you're on it?
Well, obviously, you'd like to have seats that are larger, and we might have to go visit Credit in Las Vegas occasionally. So I forgot to throw that in. We do go to Vegas 2-3 times a year, but
I'm going to Vegas a lot.
I
Yeah.
did like the larger flights. Most likely, we're only going to have maybe 2, 4, 6 people on a flight. We don't have a large group.
Thinking fractional
Yeah.
for this guy. Okay, I'm just telling you right now. His luxury requirements are high, you know.
Yeah, you can't really go below 5 million. It's getting suspect if you're paying less than that. The risks get a lot higher on like how much might this cost. There are some jets that you can buy for like 2.8 million, but you will pay more than that per year just fixing it, and it won't ever fly. So I would
And what are
say,
the safety issues too. You know, you do fall into maybe you might have a mechanical problem in the air, and I don't want to be using those parachutes or anything.
yeah, I would say that it would be those two again, the XLS and the 604, new enough but not too new. You can find some of those for $5, just above $5.
I'll throw one thing in there because when you're talking about the price of an airplane, the price of an airplane has a lot to do with how in demand that airplane is, right? So the airplanes that actually perform well financially and are stable, they tend to actually not continue. They start to hit a floor. They won't go below it because they're still offering the functionality. They may be an older plane, but they still do all these things and they still operate cheap. So they're never going to drop too low in price. That's why I think, staying up around the $5 million price is going to get you one of those planes in good shape that's going to make money. You go down to the 3 million, 2 million, you better put aside that extra couple million because you're going to spend it over here.
But there's a waiting list too for a lot of the new planes. So keep that in mind. I know during COVID, there was a backlog of people waiting for the big planes that are coming out. So just understand that even though you have the money, that doesn't mean you can have access. It's all about access. And I think with private jet flying, it's an access to people, access to opportunity, access to the experience. So you can't even put a price on experience. I want to wrap this whole thing up. I'm always the one that has to wrap these podcasts up. We ran a little bit long, but which is fine because we're going to have part 2 of this private jet talk. And I want you all to screenshot this particular podcast, put it on social media, tag us on Instagram, Twitter, any of the different apps, and also tag chatter.io on there, Chatter on there, and also Wendy, myself, and Daphne, and Ollie, and anybody else that has Instagram. And we're going to repost it. We want to get this out to as many people as possible. We are always talking about business. We're always talking about ways that people can do business, all the tools, all the access. So we want to have everybody know that Cirrus is going to be here for them, whether they want to get their own jet and then be like me on jet by myself or share it with someone. There's always a solution. And the disclaimer is that individual situations vary, budgets vary. If there's a no budget, if you have FU money, I mean, it doesn't matter. Ollie can go in there and figure the best plan out. But we want to have those people with FU money, those crypto people, those corporate people that know that you can't put a price on experience. So I'm going to land it back to Wendy to wrap it up. And also, Ollie, do you want to put your website or any way for people to get a hold of you?
Yes, my website, smarteraircraft.com, and I believe it's going to be in the show notes. And then we have an Instagram account. It's a little bit new, that account, because mostly this has been word of mouth. And it's actually, we're so busy with this model that I haven't had time to get those social media things set up. So you guys had me working hard last night trying to get all these.
Yes, we were like, wait a minute, where's your social? Get busy, Ollie. So, and he did. He came through. He's got that Instagram account ready for you guys to follow him. And he's already got some cool pictures of these jets. I mean, who doesn't want to see that every day? So, and Credit, I think in your side job, you might want to sell jets. I don't know.
Wow, you can do It's reading your hand gestures.
Funny you said that, when I do, every time that everyone wants a jet or a flight, I have my hookup. But now that I know that Greg is here in Vegas, we're going to set up some type of arrangement, and we're going to send the business his way and Ollie's way, because we take care of the people that take care of us, right? So we're going to
That's
do that for
absolutely
sure.
right.
Okay?
And
Yes,
credit,
we
you
do.
sell the jets and we'll finance them.
Yeah. Now, Red, if someone tells you they've got a 604 for $3 million, don't believe them.
No.
Call me first.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Power
Thank you.
Hour.
That was
Please,
a
guys.
great, once again, this is the best podcast, most informative every single week. You ladies are spectacular. Ollie, you were pretty good, but the ladies
You're the best.
are
Thank you so much for having me on the podcast. I'm so grateful. I'm glad we're getting this message out. And thank you so much.
We appreciate you coming on. Please tell Greg we appreciate, oh, there he is, his time. I know he's a very busy man. We hope to have you guys on again, do a little deep dive. We didn't get to, the studio audience did not get to ask questions today, but we will have you back for more. Please, everybody turn your mics on so that I can get a quick picture. Credit, you have your mic off. Where does she go? Turn your mic off. Everybody keep your eyes open. And then please follow and be sure to hit their social media. All of the hosts and co-hosts, especially Nigel and Paul down there that work so hard to keep our show going. And the tech team is just insane. Ollie, are you not impressed with our tech team? Come on.
It's amazing. You guys taught me things I didn't even know.
I'd just like to add that, for the time being, we're working over things. We're trying to figure out how the best way is to get this channel out. For the time being, I've set up a page on Wendy's website. It's wendybutlerofficial.com/Rainmakers. And you'll see your podcast on there, Ollie, and we'll have your links to Smarter Aircraft and Sirius and anything else you want as well.
Oh, thank you.
Look at this tech guy. I mean,
Thank you, everybody.
is he not the best? Well, anyway, okay. Well, thank you guys for coming in today. Thank you. Also, I know Jonathan Bing has helped us get the word out, as well as Daphne on their Debate the News show. And we do appreciate that. And as well for you guys coming in today in Nelson. So I'm going to end the room now, and I credit Scott to get back to work. She's a lot earlier than we are, but I appreciate you guys coming in.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye. See you next Tuesday.